today's panel conversation. Thank you very much to those of you who have been attending all of these panels since we began. It's amazing, but this is the 9th panel in the series. It also happens to be the last panel that we will be having before the march holds next Friday. Just to provide some context, these conversations began when we started having conversations amongst ourselves in the Nigerian American community about ways in which we can begin to put action into the support that we're showing for the cause of racial justice that was brought to the fore based on the killing of George Floyd. This year marks the 57th anniversary of the March on Washington, D.C., in which folks like Reverend Martin Luther King and John Lewis participated. And one of the things we determined to do as a community was to make sure that we would be present. And so the march is next Friday. And in addition to marching in the memory of George Floyd, one of the things that has emerged over the time as we've continued these conversations is that we do have members of our own community that we will also be commemorating and remembering on that day. So there is Toyin Salau, who would have turned 20 just the day before the march. Toyin was killed after she attended one of the marches in Florida in support of the BLM movement. We will be marching in memory of George Floyd, obviously, and people like Breonna Taylor. And then we will be marching in memory of folks like people like Emmanuel Okutuga, who was taken from us here in the Maryland area in Silver Spring. And we will also be marching in memory of Chinedu Valentine Okobi. Chinedu was killed in California on October 3rd, 2018. And today we have the unique privilege of having Chinedu's mother here with us. And she will be, just before the conversations begin, Chinedu's mother will have some time to speak to us, to talk to us and tell us about the son she loved, to tell us what it felt like for him to be taken from her and from the family, and to also tell us what her hopes and aspirations are for justice in his case, as well as for what the community, those of us who are Nigerian Americans, can do to ensure that this type of injustice no longer happens. So we look forward to that. So again, the march is on the 28th. It's going to take place at the Lincoln Memorial. Just as a reminder, as a community, we are expected to gather at Constitution Avenue and 17th. So the corner of Constitution and 17th, which is this arrow up here, that's where we will gather. We expect folks to begin to gather from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. And from 9 a.m., we will move onto the grounds itself. Speeches are supposed to commence from 11 to 1. And then after the speeches, there will be movement from the Lincoln Memorial. There will be a walk about 5 blocks down, about half a mile to the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. So our expectation is that all of the events surrounding the march should be done by about 3 p.m. What do you need to prepare for? Our color code is a white shirt. So everybody is expected to have a white shirt. We also have some optional branded shirts. So we've branded the shirts. Those of you who wanted to get the shirts, I've already done so. And then everybody who comes to the march ground will be provided with a green scarf, a green bandana. And you can use that scarf as a bandana, you can use it as a headband, you can use it as an armband. And what it would do is it would allow us to self-identify as a community for whom the green, white, green is significant. So the shirts are white, and we will have green scarves, a green bandana. We will provide those to you. So we've acquired those, and they will be available. So once you turn up at Constitution and 17th, you'll be handed that. We also have a medical team led by a number of our volunteers. And so we will be making face masks available. Bring your mask, but if you, for some reason, forget to bring it along, we will make masks available to you. We'll also make some hand sanitizer available, but do please endeavor to bring yours. Water, we will provide some bottles of water, and then we will also provide banners, and there'll be a banner and there'll be posters. So come on down, we will have posters for you. We will have text on the poster. If you have messages that you want to pass along, please go to the main forum, the group's main forum, and contribute those text messages. Look out for messages from Mr. Tope, who is coordinating all of this on our behalf, and give him suggestions for what type of text you would actually want on those posters. All of this has to be rounded up in the next couple of days. So if you have ideas, if you have messages that you believe needs to be on those poster boards, please make sure you go ahead and you make those contributions right away. We've been having very deep conversations. We've talked about everything from our racial experiences to questions about whether or not we believe we have similar experiences to our African-American brothers and sisters, to the question of participation in the marches, and then to the issue of political participation. As a community, it looks like we have been politically involved. We have been involved at many different levels. And we also then began to ask questions about whether political engagement and involvement here can actually have some type of impact on the motherland or the fatherland, whatever we choose to call it, back home in Nigeria. And the overwhelming response that all of you have had is to say that yes, that anything we do here, we can potentially leverage our political engagement here, not only to be relevant here in the States, but also to ensure that we can actually drive potentially some type of change back in Nigeria. As I said, today is the 9th panel, and we've had an incredible array of speakers over the last 8 panels. We've had incredible insights from a wide range of folks, from a wide range of perspectives, a wide range of backgrounds, a wide range of career experiences and business experiences that have shared with us their unique Nigerian American experience, shared with us challenges they've had on the question of race, and shared with us some of the tools that they've utilized to overcome those challenges. And then, as I said earlier, we've had some really deep and really rich conversations about what we as a community can do to help advance ourselves in America. Today's panel is an excellent one. We have Reverend Abayomi Ademuwagun, we have Dr. Aham Onyike, we have Madam Lara Okunubi and Dr. Adeleke Otunuga. My name is Malcolm Fabi, and Rachel Onamusi is going to be helping coordinate events in the back, on the back end. But before we go into today's panel, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking to Chinedu's mother. We're going to spend some time listening to a remarkable woman, Mrs. Amaka Okobi, whose son was tragically lost, tragically killed, and who would be telling us right now about what those experiences were like. So can I, Mrs. Okobi? Please unmute. I actually muted you back again. So if you can.
You did. Okay.
Okay, fantastic. So we welcome you to today's event. We are so, you know, when I learned about this case and learned about what happened to Chinedu, it was a really painful thing. So please, how are you doing and how is your family doing?
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to keep his story alive. We have to go on. We have to move on. My name is Maureen Amaka Okobi, a retired registered NICU nurse. Chinedu was first generation. He was born in San Francisco, California, February 13, 1982. He came out big. and with big heart too. He was such a very active boy and very, very sweet boy. Chinedu loved sport. He played basketball, he played soccer, but I had to make him to pick either soccer or basketball for varsity. So he picked basketball, and he was one of the sports writers. He was he loved sports, and he can argue and debate over sports. And he went to high school here, Oceana High School in Pacifica, where we live now, and went to college, Morehouse College in Atlanta. That's where he graduated, majored in marketing. He was such a nice boy. He was a son, a brother, a father, a poet, a rapper, friend, cousin, nephew. He loved family. Chinedu was the one, if he hasn't seen anyone from the family, he will call everywhere to find out, where's this person, where's this person? He never had a bad word for anybody. Just example of who Chinedu was. He rented a 2-bedroom apartment with this guy, and he thought that it was only 2 of them. So when they moved in, the guy moved in with 3 children, a wife, and a lady that helps them. Then I said, oh, how do you feel about that? Chinedu said, you know, Mom, I'm sure if they have money, they will not be cramped up. And he said, Mom, the only thing I need there, I have my bedroom and the bathroom. I don't cook. I don't do anything. I come to your place to eat or eat any other place. Some other people will, be mad that he never disclosed that he was coming with, all those people. See, that was Chinedu. Chinedu will never say anything bad about anybody, no matter what. He was loyal to his friends, to his family, and to his daughter, Christina. He was open, going to school in Atlanta. They opened up, they invited many successful people to Morehouse to speak to them. So he was exposed to most successful African Americans and anybody. In fact, he took several pictures with Warren Buffett. He never, the word shy was not in his dictionary. He will approach anybody and he's comfortable under his skin. He doesn't care whatever. If people say, oh, people will laugh at you, and I say, well, I don't care. I like it. He doesn't follow crowd. He was very, very honest. When we wanted someone to tell us the truth, we go to him. He was honest, but not mean. He will tell you the truth. He felt that, telling you the truth will help you to change your position, or whatever it was. And he was my traveling companion. He would go with me to baby shower, bridal shower. Everywhere I went, he said, okay, Mom, I'll come with you. Where the brothers will not go, he will go with me. He was the youngest of the 5. We used to call him the baby. Well, there are 2 of them. There's the gap between number 3 and number 4 was 4 years. And between Chinedu and the brother, 15 years. So we call those 2 the babies. In fact, people assumed they were twins. But, you know, that was Chinedu. He would go to church with me. He would go everywhere. And I see him everywhere I go. Excuse me. It's difficult. I've lost both parents, but nothing is like losing your child.
Sorry to hear that.
The only thing is that they want you to dwell on that, but no, I'm dwelling on his life, on his memory. We had many good memories. He was walking by him at the cross of the street. He was not doing anything to anybody, but they profiled him because he was black and he was 6'3" and 230 pounds. The police radioed their station, oh, there's a black man, 6'3", weighs 230 pounds. I'm going to go speak to him. When he got there, he said, "May I speak with you?" Chinedu said, "What did I do?" He didn't say, he did not tell Chinedu what he did. And then in fact, before he spoke to Chinedu, he radioed for backup. And then when they came, they clubbed him, they pepper sprayed him, they tased him. And then finally they had him on his stomach. Two police officers on the right side, two on the left, and he kept crying, screaming, "What did I do? Someone help me. Someone help me." And he continued until you can't hear his voice anymore. They did not even try to do CPR. They left him there until the EMT came. And of course, he was gone. And they came out to lie that, oh, he was running in and out of the traffic. So when he was approached, he punched somebody. But thank God someone had video. So when they showed the video, then they came back and said, "Oh no, he didn't punch anybody, but there was altercation." And even though the coroner ruled that it was a homicide, the DA refused to indict the 5 police officers. So we are seeking justice for Chinedu. And I thank you for giving me this platform, at least for his story to be continued. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ma, for sharing this, for sharing Chinedu's story with us, for telling us about Chinedu. It's clear that he was a remarkable man. We mourn his loss, and what we can certainly tell you is that when we march on Friday, we will be marching in Chinedu's memory, and then we'll follow up with you. If there's anything as a community that we can do, if there's any way that we can keep the spotlight on, if there's anything you believe that we can achieve by adding our voices to yours, please, Ma, be assured that we will do everything possible to make sure that justice is done in this case. Thank you so much for sharing time with us. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for having me
with us. Thank you, Ma. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I really want to thank Mrs. Okobi for sharing that story with us, for telling us about Chinedu. And I think what this shows is that it brings the message home. It just illustrates the fact that we're not immune to these things. We're Black. We are African Americans. We might think these issues don't concern us, but they do concern us. For every George Floyd, there is a Chinedu that we may or may not know about. And it was really, quite frankly, not until getting into these conversations that we began finding out more and more about the different members of our communities across the country that have experienced these types of issues. So thanks again, Mrs. Okobi. We will remember Chinedu. and we will continue to work with you in any way that we can to make sure that justice is done in his case. Okay, so today is the 9th conversation that we're going to be having. And as I indicated earlier, it's the final one before we go into the march. So what we're going to focus on today is we're going to ask ourselves questions about what actions we are going to be taking after the march. Yes, we're going to march. Yes, we're going to ask for justice, but the march is one day. After the march, what next? And to help us in that conversation are 4 people. There's Reverend Abayomi Ademuwagun. There's Dr. Aham Onyike, who in addition to being an orthopedic surgeon, I'll leave them to tell us about their experiences, but I'll also want them to tell us about the communities they're involved with. All of the people that we have here today they are members of some really important communities within the Nigerian American family. What we will do is that each of the speakers will have 5 minutes. So we're going to go in order of the presentation of the speakers on the poster. We're going to start with, so actually we will have ladies first. So Madam Lara will go first. She will have 5 minutes, and in those 5 minutes, she will tell us about herself, tell us about her views on the topics that we have on the table. And then after Madam Lara, we will then go to Reverend Abayomi, followed by Dr. Aham, and then Dr. Okunubi will close out those initial 5 minutes. Madam Lara, are you ready for us?
Yep, ready or not, here I am.
There you are. All right, the floor is yours.
Well, I'm going to start with expressing my condolence to Mrs. Okobi. Reached out to you. I'm glad to really meet you in person. We have a political justice committee that reached out to you when Chinedu was fatally killed, and I'm really sorry. But I also congratulate you for your bravery to come up today to speak with us. May he still rest in peace. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to be here, especially amongst this distinguished panel. And my special gratitude to Dr. Malcolm for reaching out to me. I am Lara Aduke Okunubi. In case you can't tell by my polished accent, I am from Nigeria. But this is the part where you laugh. Well, I will start with this. I am a Christian, a mother of 4 gorgeous ladies, a widow, and a blessed grandmother. One of my daughters is a CFO of a thriving organization. Another one is a physician. One is an engineer, and one is in college. I say this not to sound braggadocious, but I say this in gratitude to God and in testament to what this country, the opportunities that this country gave us, in spite of the prevailing exploitation, the prejudice, the oppression, and the discontent. But I know we're here to talk about resolutions. And, I am an entrepreneur impacting the lives of adults with developmental disabilities with skill training. We employ about 86 full-time people. 20 of those are Nigerians. I am a minister of the gospel of God in my church, serving in various capacity. I'm also a community activist for many causes, but the most important one is NAPAC. NAPAC stands for Nigerian American Public Affairs Committee. NAPAC was established about 9 years ago to do exactly what we're trying to talk about today, and I'm glad that I would have the opportunity to talk more about it. The premise upon which NAPAC was founded is to educate Nigerians that their voice is their vote, that their voice matters. 9 years ago when we started, we were not aware of a lot of Nigerians in political offices. But today, I'm very excited and proud to let you know that, especially even in the East Coast, there are about 24 Nigerians contesting for state senate in Missouri, for House of Rep, various capacities. And this excites me to be able to know that we are finally waking up. We have Ademuwagun in Prince George County. You know, we have Kayode Abegunde, we have Yomi Faburusi, we have Gabe Okoye, we have Onyike Adebayo, all of these people competing in their various states, and NAPAC has stood up to support them. Today, because of the topic that we're talking about, I'm going to conclude my introduction with a quote from Martin Luther King Jr., which says, "Change does not roll in on the wheels of inevitability, but comes through continuous struggle. So we must straighten our backs to work for our freedom, because a man cannot ride you unless your back is bent." So today, as we talk with Mrs. Okoye and in her story, we affirm the fact that Black lives matter, which is why we are here. We know that the lives of the people we lost, Chinedu Okobi, Tony Salau, George Floyd, those lives can never be replaced. But we must stand in anger and bravery of protesters, the activists that is risking their lives, and the movement that's going to happen on August 28th to affirm our position that Black lives matter. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Madam Okunubi, for that very rousing 5 minutes intro. A man cannot ride your back unless the back is bent.
That's right.
That's powerful. So thank you very much for that. There are a number of things you said that we'll come back to after this initial round of conversations. But now I want to go to Reverend Abayomi Ademuwagun. Reverend, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Malcolm, for having me. It's wonderful to have been your friend all these years, and I'm glad at what the Lord is using you to do. Mrs. Okobi, I accept our condolence again. I felt you through my bone marrows, and it's so chilly, but thank God for strengthening you. And it's wonderful that you summoned the courage to come and share your experience. My name is Abayomi Ademuwagun. I'm a district superintendent with Christ Apostolic Church worldwide. I oversee churches in the North Washington district. But proud before then, I've been a student union activist, a student union leader, a senator of the National Association of Nigerian Students. And I thank God for I ordered my path. I used to be a marine engineer. I used to work for the US Army. But now I'm a full-time pastor for the past 7.5 years. I've come into the United States. I had some wonderful experiences that makes me to personally identify with this movement and the purpose and goals of this movement. I remember I came from Singapore. I used to work as a chief engineer of a ship in Singapore. Then I came to US and I had to start from afresh from the start. While studying at the New York Maritime College, I had the license to drive taxi in Chicago. And during the holidays, I would go to Chicago to drive. I remember one of the days, I parked at one of the major hotels in Chicago downtown to use their restroom. And by the time I came out, I was relayed by some men, security guards of the hotel, and I was taken to their security office in the basement, detained for hours. And they said I had no right to use the restroom. They took me for an homeless person. Even though I had my driver's license, I showed them my car, my key, my driver's license, my driver's permit, tax driver's permit, everything. They threatened to do my car. I was humiliated. After a few hours, I was forced to sign a document stating that I would never be there again. When I left, I got humiliated. I felt embarrassed. There was no one to turn to. Every Nigerian I spoke with asked me to thank God that I came out alive, that I wasn't framed off. But there was something in me that told me that I deserve better. So what I did was that I contacted the Rainbow Coalition of J.C. Jackson, Reverend J.C. Jackson. They gave me a lawyer without any charge. And my case was taken up, and eventually I was settled. And it came right handy because I used the money to pay my school fees. But again, I could have kept quiet. The big lesson there is that as Nigerians, we need to stop living a cowardized life. Nigerians are bold, but oftentimes when it comes to the issue that affect us as people in diaspora. Sometimes we let go our right. And if you let go of your right, very soon you will lose your left. And if care is not taken, you will lose your life, or your right, your life eventually. I remember as a student of the New York Maritime College, my very first day in the school mess, in my merchant marine uniform, I got my breakfast, went to the table just to eat. By the time I sat at the table, every other person at the table were white guys. They took their plates and left and abandoned me. Then I knew I got the message. And another instinct that came that worked for me then was the fact that Nigerians are people of excellence. So I immersed myself in my books. After the first semester, my results, I won a scholarship. I was everywhere in the school, and that silenced that. So in conclusion, I believe that our resilience, our determination to do excellent works are the keys that we need to overcome. Going forward, I have two recommendations. That there is need for us to have tangible community organization, and that is where I put the background I have with me. Tangible community organization is very, very important. When I was leaving Nigeria for Singapore in 1997, I was a member of the Rotaract Club. I had the word Rotaract directly in my hand. From my hotel in Singapore, I was able to contact people, and within 1 week, less than 1 week, I made over 500 friends. So if a Nigerian comes to Dallas who doesn't know anyone, is there a directory that the Nigerian can reach out to know that, oh, I have 50 Nigerians, 100 Nigerians at my beck and call? So there is need for tangible community organization, state by state, county by county, city by city, and the need for a general national directory of Nigerians. That way we can reach together. We can reach out and work together in a better fashion. Thank you, Malcolm, for having me.
Thank you so much, Reverend, for those powerful words. And I love the background that you have. We should stop agonizing and we should start organizing. As Reverend and as Reverend Yomi said, he and I have known each other for almost 30 years now, if not more. And we fought together on the front lines in Nigeria as students activists. So it's wonderful that after all these years, nothing has changed. Even it looks like when you went into the pastoral line, all of that activist streak has remained in you. So I know that your time is going to be short with us, but what I'll do now is I'll go very quickly to Dr. Aham, and then before we go to Dr. Otunuga, I might throw you a quick question so that you can take that before you leave. Dr. Aham, please, the floor is yours for a quick 5-minute overview. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'll see if I can even be shorter than 5 minutes, recognizing you're pressed for time. But good evening once again to everyone, Dr. Fabiye for organizing this and the rest of the organization, fellow panelists, Mrs. Okobi, my sincere condolences. I remember reading your story on social media, and it was touching then, and even more so now, hearing it from you. I'm personally a father of 2 boys. I really can't imagine. So as a self-introduction, I'm Aham Onyike, Dr. Aham Onyike. Once again, a father of 2 boys, a husband of 1 wife. That's a joke, but I'm a husband. I live in Washington, D.C. I have orthopedic surgery practices here in Washington, D.C., Maryland, Lagos, and Owerri. So I'm somebody who shuttles and goes back and forth. But I was actually born in Colorado, here in the United States, to parents who at the time were in graduate school. My parents, particular father, was someone who was a child of the 60s or who came of age in the 60s and kind of embraced a lot of the self-determination struggles by Blacks and Africans in the diaspora at that era. So a lot of my early interactions with him and just seeing some of the magazines and books lying around in his study pertain to the Black struggle and Black pride and Black self-determination. And that was actually the reason my parents went back to Nigeria to fulfill a sense of commitment to help develop their own homeland. And that's where I was raised. Myself and my brothers grew up in Nigeria, which gave me a priceless opportunity to get to know my own homeland and really grow up there and feel Nigerian to the bone. But I came back to the United States to go to university when I was 17. I went to Penn State, and there, at that freshman in 1989, there really weren't that many Nigerians here in comparison to what we have now. And so as a Black student on campus, you see someone from Ghana, and that really felt like a brother to you, or Cameroon, or South Africa. And so fellow Africans, not just Nigerians, we could see the connection and the familiarity and some similarities that overlapped. People from the West Indies were like cousins. You know, they were still closer to us than other populations. And Black Americans similarly were cousins. And from that perspective, you could see a lot of the overlap and similarities. And you know, you meet Black Americans, and some of them remind you of your own uncle or your own friends and siblings. Those similarities are easier to see when you've gotten exposure to everyday life here in the US. And that has been has sort of formed my perspective. At Penn State, I was a student union leader. I was vice president of the African Students Association and on the executive council of the Black Students Union. I was a writer for the student newspaper, and I had an opinion column that was weekly, which gave me a lot of latitude to express my ideas, many of which at the time were pertaining to issues of concern to the larger Black communities at the time. Subsequent to that, went to medical school in New Jersey, and then my residency was at Howard University, which is a historically Black institution. So that gave me an additional experience and perspective of the Black American life and the relatedness that they have for us and we have for them. Not just my colleagues and peers who are the educated upper class of Black Americans, but even some of the patients who come from the more neglected parts of America. So I've been able to really appreciate that perspective. Subsequent to that, my practice has been more in the urban areas, and so those are some of my patients. I still spend a lot of time in Nigeria. If not for the virus, I would have been there at least twice this year by now. Currently, I'm the president of the Association of Nigerian Physicians in America, which is the biggest representative organization for doctors here in the States, and also North America and the West Indies. I'm the chapter chair for the DC, Maryland, Virginia branch. Also one of the founding members of the Organization for Impact and Reform, which is a political group intended to, as Pastor Abayomi has stated, see how the larger group of us who are dissatisfied with the state of affairs in our homeland can start trying to organize ourselves and then subsequently mobilize to have some level of impact, because we don't think what we're seeing is any longer acceptable. I'll try to wrap up just quickly saying that some of my life experiences I'll feel have allowed me to see the big picture. And I think that there's racism or tribalism in all communities, including Nigeria. Unfortunately, you hear some of the tribal sentiments that float around. So I think as leaders in any community, it becomes imperative that they proactively build foundations that destroy that mindset that seems to be inherent in all populations. And in the absence of that, those sentiments get stronger and stronger. And I think that's what we're seeing with the Trump regime. That void in leadership has allowed the racial sentiments to get stronger than ever. To tackle it, to me, is a big picture beyond any of us. A lot of it has to do with economics. So I think the economics is what leads to the sentiments and the inability of resources to be shared fairly or evenly. And I'm not sure how we tackle that in a brief conversation, but I'm happy to lend ideas. And I think the other part is political. I think the state of Black America, both the neighborhoods they live in, the state of Africa, the countries that we come from, and the state of the West Indies, as a Black population, the report card is disappointing, and the inability of our political systems on all fronts to deliver improvement for our people affects the perceptions that people have of us, and gives us a disadvantage in playing on a level playing field. I'll stop there, and I'm sure we'll have opportunities to keep talking.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for those perspectives, Dr. Aham. There are a number of things you said that I would really love to come back to. Reverend, I know you have to leave like right now, but if you have 2 minutes, do you have 2 minutes?
Go ahead, sir.
Okay. You're in a unique place. You've been an activist. You're now a pastor. And in the US here, the church has a strong tradition of struggle, right? So when we talk about the civil rights movement, we're talking about people like Reverend Lawson. We're talking about people like Reverend Martin Luther King. When you talk about the Push Coalition, the people that provided you with a lawyer in Chicago, we're talking about people like Reverend Jesse Jackson. What do you think the role of the Nigerian religious community should be in the struggle? Because the truth of the matter is that whether we're talking about political engagement here in the US or political engagement back in Nigeria, our religious institutions, unfortunately, have been more silent than visible or outspoken.
Thank you. That's a very good question. And that's an observation that is right on the money. And the fact that our religious groups have been very passive stems out of our culture and stems out of the way we were trained as ministers. We are trained as ministers to be submissive. We are trained as ministers to obey the laws of the land, except if it directly touches on our belief. And I believe to a great extent, there is need to redefine that position. When my friend was contesting for president of Nigeria, when I decided to stand out for him, I received many phone calls, many text messages. Pastor, why are you doing this? Why do you want to ruin your ministry? But the question that came to my mind was that if Martin Luther King had confided himself to the pulpit, the change we have in America today would be difficult for us. He never confined himself to behind the pulpit. Right. Therefore, going forward, I believe that the Christian leaders, particularly the Nigerian community, needs to be more involved, need to engage more, needs to be more active in political issues. However, though, there is a change. For instance, most religious organizations have 501c3 tax exempt. And because of that, they have to be careful how to get involved in political issues. And I think that is a big issue. But my personal belief is that the time has come for religious leaders to get involved, to be bold about it, because we have a good example with Reverend Martin Luther King. Less neighbors will be in vain. I want to thank you for having me, and I want to thank everybody. And I apologize that I have to leave. Thank you
very much. Please, we expect to see you and members of the church at the march on Friday. I will send all the details to you. I'll follow up with you. Thank you so much. And sorry we overran by a number of minutes, but we're very grateful for that you were able to honor our invitation today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we now have one more speaker in this 5-minute segment. So I want to call on Dr. Otunuga to please give us his 5 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Fabi. Good evening, everyone. It's once again a pleasure to be here to talk about these issues that are so dear to all of us. This will be the third time about that I'll be on this panel. And I am sure a lot of people here have seen me speak at one point or the other. So I'm just going to summarize on who I am. My name is Adeleke Otunuga. I was once in the US Army. I'm now an entrepreneur, a business owner. I live in Lara, Maryland. My activism side, I would like to leave Student Union aside because I think this panel is looking more like a lineup with Dr. Aham, Pastor Ademuwagun, Dr. Fabi, So I'm going to leave that side of mine. I'm sticking with Ms. Okunubi.
She's an activist too.
Say that again?
She's an activist as well.
A student union activist?
Well.
So I'm sticking with her.
Okay, good.
My community activism side, I am a member of a lot of numerous community organizations. I am currently the outgoing chairman of the Alliance of Yoruba Organizations and Clubs in this DC metro area. I was once a treasurer of the National Organization of Ijebu Descendants, and many more. Now, why this is very important? We're talking about racism, but a lot of us who also grew up in Africa will readily agree and understand that there is tribalism as well in Africa. And you see, when we were back home in Nigeria as student union activists, you know, you feel America is that El Dorado, that place of peace where everybody enjoys relative freedom. Until we got here, and then we begin to understand that racism and tribalism are like Siamese twins. You know, they all feed off of prejudice. Now, prejudice is not just based on, you know, our color. Unfortunately for the Nigerian or for the African, we are also very well educated. And so we experience prejudice on that front also. I remember my experience about prejudice was, I remember when I was still serving in the US Army, and I started my doctorate program, and my commander had to sign off for my tuition assistance forms. And because of that, he got to know that I was in school. So he called me aside and said, "Oh, you see," he did not look what class of degree I was, you know, getting. He thought I was getting my first degree. So he made a comment. He thought he was joking, but that resonates with me as I then. He said, "Oh, you are getting a degree, you're gonna be dangerous." And without even thinking, I blurted out, "Look, I am already dangerous because I already got my master's degree." And I left him wide-mouthed and I just walked out of his office. And subsequent events, you know, very, very veiled, because one thing is I was really, a lot of people served in the US Army, you are protected against all these discriminations and prejudice. You are, you know, protected by the system. But as you transit into the larger society, you begin to see glimpses of all of this. That America is not as free as we thought it was. And that there were a lot of things that won't even happen in Nigeria that people are getting away with in this country. You know, and that is why we need to take all of this very, very seriously. We really condole with Chinedu's mom. You know, I heard the name before now, but you see, it doesn't really touch you the way it touches you when you actually know someone who is very close to that victim. And this is why conversations like this are very important. You know, we bring ourselves together, we share information, we share experiences, and perhaps that will help to invigorate the activism, you know, spirit in us to seek justice. Because an injustice to one is an injustice to all. And as we continue in this kind of conversations, as we continue to work together as communities, to come together, to speak together, to work together to overcome the various challenges that our community face, I think we are very close to getting results. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Otunuga, for that summation. You've raised some really important and very cogent points. Before we go forward, into the next phase, I just wanted to repeat. A number of things. So very quickly, because we've been getting those questions, I wanted to emphasize that the march is actually this Friday. So August 28th is not a Saturday. August 28th is a Friday. The march is on Friday. The slide that is on now tells us how we're to gather. So the actual events, the speeches commence at 11 a.m. It's going to be at the Lincoln Memorial. But we're expecting hundreds of thousands of people. We're just going to be a small part of a larger march being organized by Reverend Al Sharpton's National Action Network coalition. So it's going to be a lot of people at that march. We will be gathering at the corner of Constitution Avenue and 17th, and we will be there. So a number of us that are part of the planning group, we would have been there from 7 to make sure that things are organized, but we expect people to begin to gather between 8 to 9. By 9, we will move from the corner of Constitution and 17th. So as people arrive, we will have ready for you packs that would include things like a green bandana. The dress code is a white t-shirt. We will have safety materials available for you. Bring your face mask, bring your hand sanitizers. If you don't bring them, however, we will have them ready for you. So please, the march is on Friday. The gathering time is from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. at the corner of Constitution Avenue and 17th. And then for those who have not obtained an optional branded t-shirt, just come with a white t-shirt. And we will have, as I said earlier on, green scarves and bandanas available for you so that everybody associated with the Nigerian American contingent to the march is going to be similarly clothed. Okay. The other thing I would announce is that in the chat room, there is an appeal that has been posted. The appeal is from somebody who served on one of our panels a couple of weeks ago. Please go in there. There are quite a number of us on the call today. If all of us went in and signed up to that appeal and also share it with our friends, it will help to move things forward. So please go into the chat. Rachel will continue to post that appeal. And if you have not gone in to support it yet, just go ahead and support it. The person who is making that appeal is one of us. She was on our panel a while back and told us about the particular issues steeped in racism that actually prompted that particular issue. So the way we can show support is by going ahead and signing that appeal. So I appeal to everyone to please go ahead and do that. Coming back to the panel, I think what's remarkable about today's panel is that every single person that's on the panel has a history of activism and engagement. So I'll start with you, Dr. Aham. Have you been as involved politically, post-Penn, post-college? Have you stayed engaged? And if you haven't, why not? And if you have, why?
I guess it depends on what we look at as engagement.
Okay.
I'll say shortly after college, I was in medical school, and that was probably the busiest stretch of my life. Nevertheless, I still was someone who, I guess at some point had signed up for Democratic Party canvassing in Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, the canvassing was serious because that's many people may understand, a battleground state. And so the potential of your efforts to make a difference on election day was more tangible. But where I was in Newark, New Jersey, well, actually Philadelphia before that, and then Newark, New Jersey, it was a little bit different. Those were heavily Democratic states. And so I was in medical school, and I was very busy at the time, and really did not get much into it. Although at the point, there was an effort to defeat the incumbent Republican governor, Christy Todd Whitman at the time, and I did not really participate, but I was in the loop. And then subsequent to that, residency was equally busy in a different kind of way, and I was in Washington, D.C., which is an even more heavily Democratic state. At that point, I guess was involved in multiple groups with discussions on initially Abacha's death attempt and our sense that that was not right for Nigeria, but that was more of a diaspora discussion group, not any real activism. And subsequent to that, was in Washington, D.C., and there was a new Nigerian government, new democracy, and it all looked good, but there was really limited ability to participate from the diaspora. And in Washington, D.C., I think through residency, I got to meet some people and got involved in some of the local city council races and things of that sort. So I think, yes, is the answer. I've been involved longitudinally, sometimes with an active involvement, and sometimes more on the periphery.
So thank you for that response. I will come back again to address another of the points that you had raised, but I want to quickly go to Madam Lara. So Mr. Okunubi, you mentioned that you are part of a group called NAPAC. How do you operate?
Thank you. Nigerian American Public Affairs Committee has 3 umbrellas. We have the overall umbrella, which is for, just different issues affecting Nigerians, community issues. But we also have the state PACs, which are predominantly dedicated. They are the 527 organization. They are the ones that are legally allowed to support people running for offices, to fight for different policy changes and stuffs like that. We also have another arm, which is NAPAC Foundation, that is the arm. But for the purpose of today's discussion, the most important aspect of it is the state PACs, because we're talking about how can we make changes. That is what NAPAC stands for. We're about changing the dynamics of what's going on. And how do you do that? United States, for example, stand for certain ideals, which is why most of us are attracted to come here, because it talks about your equal rights. Unfortunately, those things have not transcended into actions because of many things. Dr. Adeleke mentioned part of us not standing up because we're not aware of our rights. Even when our rights are there, we're not exercising those rights. Part of the political power that you have in America is about democracy. And what does democracy stand for? You have one vote, I have one vote. You have one voice, I have one voice. That is what NAPAC is about. It's about educating our community to, first of all, get involved. You cannot sit on the edge. You have to get involved. And how do you get involved? You have to be aware of little communities where information are being shared. Political awareness, whether it is in the church. Somebody mentioned about the church, and I'm sorry that the Reverend had to leave, because that's part of where we have a concentration of Nigerians, the faith-based organization, whether it's a mosque or churches. And when leaders like that feel like they are precluded from political engagement, it's very sad, because it is them that can preach the word to their congregation. You don't need to tell them how to vote, but you need to educate them that they need to vote. Vote is one of the ways that we can get attention. Vote is one of the non-violent ways for us to state what we are unhappy about, what our point of contention is. And unfortunately, based on a small statistics, a lot of Nigerians don't get to vote. They do not vote. And even worse are the young generation, the millennials. Why? There are some systemic issues. The immigration is part of the issues. Average, maybe 40% of Nigerians that are in this country don't have the legal status. And when they come to the America, they spend probably about 5 to 7 years before they can even regulate their status. Within those 5 to 7 years, they've already gotten complacent about voting. So by the time they regulate their stand or their immigration status, they don't even care about voting anymore. So here in America, NAPAC is looking to engage all Nigerians. And I'm glad about this panel because you have you have all of these people that are head of different organizations. We need to connect. NAPAC is here to educate Nigerians about what direction to go. NAPAC is here to educate Nigerians and to support Nigerians in starting, with offices. It doesn't matter how little we start, but we need to start an academy. We're already working on starting an electoral academy. That is NAPAC. We have a coalition in which we're engaging different people in California for a start about giving an opportunity for job shadowing for our people. Because unless you know what it's about, you're not going to know whether you're interested in voting for offices or not. So we're trying to entrench and trying to coordinate and align the young Nigerians to work in different political offices so they see how it is done. Because if you don't know how it is done, unfortunately, you are not going to know how things actually work. So that's one of the things that the NAPAC.
Okay.
And we also have, okay, my time's up. Okay.
Yes. So we can come back to those points as we move on. But Dr. Otonuga. So my question for you, Dr. Otonuga, is that I consider myself to be a fairly inquisitive, out there, trying to be aware of any organization that is trying to advance Nigerian Americans. But the truth of the matter is that it is only in the last 2-3 months that I've come to learn about a number of different organizations that are trying to do similar things, right? So there's obviously, there are obviously lots of groups. I found out about NAPAC, for example, only in the last 1 month. I found out about some organizations. Dr. Aham mentioned another organization for impact and reform that is involved with, and we just kept finding out about more and more organizations. So clearly there is starting to be movement within our communities. There are groups that are all around. And you mentioned the fact that you are also involved in a number of perhaps more ethnic, more cultural type organizations, but national in spread, but more ethnic, more cultural. What do you think we can do to ensure that we find a way, as Madam Lara just said, to begin to work together, that we find a way to begin to leverage the fact that it appears that there are more of us out there, there are lots of organizations out there. How do we begin to leverage all those different strengths that might right now not be obvious to all of us and move forward, while considering the fact and facing the reality, as you mentioned, as Dr. Aham mentioned, that we might be talking about racism here, but we're also plagued by other isms, right? There's, ethnicity is an issue. Tribalism is an issue. How do we move forward as a community?
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, we are beginning to see rising awareness within the last, few months. But the truth of the matter is that there have been a lot of organizations out there, even those who are not cultural in nature, like Ms. Okunubi talked about NAPAC having been registered about 7 years ago. You and I also know about GAIN, Governance Advancement Initiative for Nigeria, that has been around for about 2-3 years now, and so on and so forth. I think what has happened is that each one of us have been operating within a limited sphere of influence. None of the Nigerian American organizations have been coming together to work together, to seek to forge alliance together. And that has always been the bane. I will give you an experience from, the cultural organizations that I have led or that I've been members of. What you find out is that everybody wants to operate within that small, scope. For instance, the Alliance of Yoruba Organizations is supposed to be an umbrella for all Yoruba organizations and clubs. But till tomorrow, you still find it difficult to convince some organizations to join the alliance. You know, to some people, it's like joining a bigger organization is like you leaving your comfort zone, or maybe you are losing some kind of control. You know, I think this comes with human beings. It is not peculiar to Nigerians, but I think we can begin to engage. We can begin to, you know, to have this kind of conversations, to put people together, to see the need for us to come together. One of the things that is supposed to help this quest, you know, one of the resources that we should have is the Nigerian embassy. But you and I know they are not helpful. It's either they don't understand the need to support Nigerian-based organizations, or they just don't want it. I remember when I became the chairman of Yoruba Alliance, one of our very first visits was to the embassy. You know, you have to know somebody who knows somebody, because before you can even secure, you know, a meeting date with the ambassador. And even after that, you know, we invited them to different, you know, some of our programs that we had and all that. It's difficult getting them to even attend, to even acknowledge anything, to even see the need, you know, to use that platform to reach out to Nigerians. Perhaps if the embassy had been very forthcoming, maybe we won't even be here. If the embassy had a roll call or a Rolodex of Nigerian organizations where I can just call in and say, oh, which organizations are this or that, and they can just give you that list, it will have been easier. But thank God for this kind of conversation. You know, since we started, we have been able to reach out to a lot of groups, a lot of Nigerians, a lot of organizations, and I believe we should continue, even beyond the march. If we can continue with this kind of engagement, we can begin to come to a table where we discuss our futures together, as individual groups and as collective efforts.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that contribution, Dr. Otunuga. So I'll go back to you, Dr. Aham. As we, you started, so we're in a very political period now in America, obviously. And as Madam Lara had indicated, there are lots of, let me not say lots, but there are a lot more Nigerians that are running for different offices than we used to have. At the national level, this is probably one of the most consequential elections we will ever have. It has implications for not just the direction of the country. It has implications for what America's outlook to the world would be. It has implications for immigration, perhaps not for us, but for our brothers and sisters back in the homeland that might be wanting to come this way. It has massive implications. How would you, is this something that, so in your organization, your professional organization, the group that you, the AMPA, the Association of Medical Professionals, is it AMPA?
It is AMPA.
Okay, so is this, so I know it's a professional organization, but are these types of issues anything that would normally be discussed or considered? That's number one. And then the other question I want you to consider as well is that how do you, so I'm excited by the fact that you and others already have this organization for impact and reform that you are, you know, that you've already formed. What are your thoughts about how to begin to expand those conversations and to bring more people into those discussions? And then also the steps that we can begin to take, whether it's by yourself or with others, to ensure that those conversations become actionable things that we can use to impact this country and then impact the society around us and enable us to get to whatever we believe that next step is going to be. So it's a double-barreled question.
Sure. So I'll start with your first question, which is about AMPA. AMPA is the Association of Nigerian Physicians in America. So by nature, that group has regulated itself to be nonpartisan, and such doesn't actively, as currently, participate in the political process. With the initial inception of AMPA was actually outward looking towards Nigeria, less so inward looking into the Nigerian community of doctors in America. And so a lot of the political positioning has been one of neutrality, particularly pertaining to Nigeria. On the American side, by far the larger majority of members are Democratic Party leaning, but the group doesn't do anything formal at all in terms of partisan politics in America. Now, I think 2020 is a very special year. It's a very special election. It's a very special period in history. And with that in mind, it's a lot more verbalization of the need for AMPA as an organization and members to participate more actively and visibly in American politics. But until now, that has not been the case. With that said, AMPA has formed a political action committee, a PAC, which allows it to raise funds to participate in the political process. But a lot of the conversations that I'm aware of pertaining to that have to do with political processes in Nigeria more than here in the States. To answer your second question, the Organization for Impact and Reform, that also is outward looking towards Nigeria. But we recognize that the diaspora communities here in the States, Canada, the United Kingdom, and elsewhere have a lot of potential power in terms of expertise, finances, and connections. And the goal is really to network with that in mind and grow in strength to a level that allows us to have some impact at home. And with that, we recognize that there are diaspora communities here and elsewhere that also have roles to play. And so we would allow ourselves to do that. To answer your question about how do we turn those ideas into action, we've chosen to be patient and focus on building the internal foundation of the organization. Because what we've realized with a lot of these organizations is that you're consistently punching below your weight because you just don't have the resources, you don't have the money, you don't have the paid staffers and other things that are required. And so as much as we welcome people that we can plug in to help the foundational building portions of the organization, we're not too pressed at this stage of action beyond that. I think there'll be time for that. We're looking at the race as a longitudinal one, a marathon, and not as much of a sprint, even though 2023 is still at the back of our minds.
Got you. Fantastic. So thanks for that. You mentioned something which is really interesting, which I think I'll just throw to everyone for your perspectives. So we have. So some of this came up last week, but I want us to expand on it a little bit more, mostly because we've had conversations today. Dr. Otunoga mentioned an organization called GAIN, which is based here in the DC, the leadership is here in the DC area. It's Governance Advancement Initiative for Nigeria. Dr. Aham, you have just spoken about the Organization for Impact and Reform, which is, even though you guys are here, a lot of the focus of what you're trying to impact is back in Nigeria, right? In terms of reform. So one of the things that we have touched in the past, and which I think is also really important is, and I'll just throw this out there. In 2015 in Nigeria, we had fairly free and fair elections for one reason. Barack Obama taped a 7-minute video where he spoke directly to the Nigerian people. He told them that the US was closely watching the elections, and he told them that the US was determined to make sure that Nigerians had an opportunity to truly choose their leaders. He did a video. I'm not sure. I presume everybody knows that that actually happened. Now, the implication of that, obviously, was that the political actors were a little more careful about the magic that normally happens in Nigerian elections on election day. What has happened since, obviously, is that there's quite frankly very little interest in anything that is going on in Nigeria or anywhere else. And so the type of pressure that makes governments sit up, whether it is with regards to, right now for the last 2-3 years, there have been incessant ethnic killings in the country. There's nobody paying any attention. If there are elections, they are largely a joke. So one of the things that is obvious is that political engagement here can actually potentially be helpful in allowing us to leverage the access that we have to the institutions of governance here to make sure that there's the right, potentially the right focus, in terms of helping to ensure that there is fairness and justice in what goes on in Nigeria. Is that something that we believe can potentially be a benefit to more political engagement here, that while it helps to ensure that we become part of the fabric of this nation, that engaging here politically can also help us advance some of the things that Organization for Impact and Reform might be trying to do, and in your case, Dr. Otunoga might be helping to advance some of the things that GAIN is trying to do in Nigeria, and in your case, Madam Okunubi, is there any consideration by NAPAC that some of the things you're doing here to enhance political engagement can also have some benefits back in Nigeria? So I'll start with you, Madam Okunubi, and then we'll go to Dr. Otunoga and then round that out with Dr. Onyike.
Yeah, absolutely. But one of the things we have to recognize is that charity begins at home. For most of us that live here, this is home. As Nigerian American community, we need to come to terms that as long as we live and thrive in this country, our collective destiny, especially the destiny of our children, are tied with those of African Americans. So first of all, we must stand in solidarity with them, understand their issues, empathize with their concerns, affirm in unison with clear conviction that Black lives really matter. Because until we're able to do that, it will be difficult for us to create a playbook for the Nigerian system. We have little control about what happens in Nigeria. Nevertheless, NAPAC has been very active on the forefront. We collaborate with, we're about to collaborate with Sweet Sensation, for example, to distribute food. We're doing those things that are within control. We work with AMPA here in California also. A few of our members have participated in their medical mission. And we've written a couple of letters. There was an ambassador that was being, I don't remember his name right now, anyway, but we wrote letters. So we've always participated in Nigeria, but you cannot burn a candle from both ends. We're starting with this end of the candle because we want to make sure that our children, our NAPAC is committed, for example, to work and to recruit the next group of leaders based on a set of values, and until we're able to demonstrate that we have done so successfully here, and we have a lot of people of influence. When a Nigerian from California who is a senator is writing a letter, another Nigerian from Missouri is writing a letter, that's the way we can pack a sucker punch. So unless you're standing firm on the ground, you cannot fight a battle here and over there. It's like an accountant who cannot balance his own book. How can you tell me that you're going to balance my book? So we have to be able to demonstrate that here we have regrouped, we have organized, we have a voice, and we know that that same song can be played in Nigeria. We don't have enough, for lack of a fight in Nigeria.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So thanks for that. So let me quickly throw something into the mix before Dr. Otunoga and Dr. Aham add to the conversation. So here's what I would say. Late last year, or in the middle of last year, we had reason, a political acquaintance of mine in Nigeria was arrested. It was arrested for calling for protest. It was locked up. It was going to be charged for treason. And we understood and we realized that the Nigerian government was not going to do anything. There was nothing anybody could do. So we began to mobilize responses from the US. And it turned out that, obviously, if we're trying to get anything done for our community, in the next Senate, in the next Congress, we're not going to have one Nigerian American represented anywhere because none of them is running for Congress at the national level. right? So if, for instance, there's something our community wants about immigration policy, the truth of the matter is the only way we're going to get it done is by working with people who are going to be elected into the next Congress. Correct. So our vision has to go beyond just supporting Nigerians running for office. And I know that's what we're doing in many instances. Our vision has to go, in my view, regardless of party affiliation. Are you a friend of Nigeria or not? Are you a friend of the things we as Nigerian Americans believe in? We believe in racial equality. We believe in justice for all. We believe that that Africa, U.S. policy towards Africa should have a certain posture, and we believe that America's policy towards Nigeria should have a certain posture. And I would imagine that regardless of, so maybe one way to fast track that impact is that we are also supporting those organizations. We're supporting, not organizations, sorry. We're supporting those candidates who have shown a propensity for Africa-related issues. So as I was saying, we ended up getting letters. We ended up getting people to support. And that support came from across the aisle. It came from mostly, a lot of Democrats. It came from the House. We got letters from Schumer. We got letters from the justice committees in Congress. So as Dr. Otunuga and Dr. Aham, as you consider this point, I want you to also speak to how far we need to cast this net.
Can I have 30 seconds to answer that?
Okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but also it's about sphere of influence. Like Dr. Otunuga was talking about the Yoruba community. There's some things that doesn't really make us come together. Here in America, silence and idleness in the face of all of this that is going on, they're complicity. And we have to cure that complicity within ourselves. We need to mobilize our group. Of course, we cannot say that we're only voting for Nigerians. But if we're going to change policies that will benefit Nigerian community, that's what NAPAC stands for. We need to be able to galvanize our people and say, you know what? We have 5,000 votes. So we're going to garner this 5,000 if you support reform in education, because all Nigerians believe in education. So we are not going to preach reverse racism. No, we're not just going to support Nigerians. We're going to support issues that affect Nigerian community, that affect immigration, that affect education, that affect onboarding Nigerians into the community, because that's really where the problem starts with. Dr. Tunuga also mentioned about the Nigerian embassy. They're just, I'm sorry, they're not functional. I don't even know why they're there apart from giving a visa. But if they can put visa application completely online, nobody needs them because they're not representing the interests of Nigerians in America, neither are they representing the interests of Nigerian Americans in America. So these are all the systemic structures that needs to go away. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that for those additional points. Dr. Otunuga, please go ahead, and then after that, Dr. Aham, please, you'll have an opportunity to address the same questions. Dr. Otunuga.
Oh yes. The issue is not so much about what we are concentrated on, but what the results we are looking out for. I was going to talk about the experience that you shared earlier, Dr. Fabi. That was a eye-opener. One of the things that you find out is that before this time out, there's been a lot of Nigerians and Nigerian organizations that are doing wonderful things in Nigeria. At some point, I think from 2011, a lot of Nigerians in the diaspora started supporting one aspirant or one political party or the other in Nigeria. A lot of Nigerians have written proposals. A lot of Nigerians have reached out to, administrators in Nigeria about helping them to improve on processes and, their policies and all that. And a lot of us have come back frustrated. A lot of Nigerians have vowed never again, that they are not going to have anything to do with Nigeria again because they are just frustrated that all of their efforts have been to naught. And this is one thing that you now find out. This brings us back to when we were in the student union. one of the things that we normally do to force the hand of government, I'm talking about the military government for, for that matter, was that we appeal to international communities. We make sure they are aware of our struggles, they are aware of our, grievances, and then they are aware of what we are trying to do to engage the government. And because they are involved and they have keen interest in it, and also the international media, it becomes difficult for the military regime to maltreat us as students. And so usually we are able to bring them to the negotiation table. Now, at this point in time, we can actually borrow that kind of an idea. If we are able to form and nurture organizations here, organizations that can speak to policymakers in this country, that can speak to senators, can speak to governors, that can speak to who is who in this country and say, look, this is the problem that we see over there, and this is where we need you to be. This is what cause we want you to, to support. I think we will be having a headway. Don't forget, the only language that the oppressors in Africa understand is their language of their masters overseas. A lot of the people, who oppress Nigerians and Africans, they have their investments stashed away in places like this. And so it is easy for the governments in the US, for the governments in the UK, in Germany, and all these places where all this illegal wealth are stashed, it is so easy for them to, to call them to order and say, look, this is what you want to do. And the only way we can do that, if we have thriving organizations that are not just thriving, that the political class here will see as viable source of votes for them. We have a lot of Nigerians, who can vote. We have a lot of Nigerians. If we can come together and present that platform, politicians will be running after us and not the other way around.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So those are really important points. There's a lot of potential within the community, a lot of opportunity for greater impact if we can find ways of leveraging it and working together. Dr. Aham, please, your contributions.
Certainly. So I'll start off by saying that the organizations that I could speak on behalf of actually have an attitude of working with other organizations, having a collaborative effort, including the political group. But I'll say that generally speaking, when you start creating a vision and a mission of any organization, it's easier when it's narrow and it's pointed at a focused area target. And so OFIA is not a diaspora organization. It's really a Nigeria-based organization with a presence wherever there are Nigerians. And I happen to be a person in Washington, D.C. So the focus of the organization is really the front in Nigeria, but we still recognize the diaspora communities and the needs politically of that community. But I'll also make a point to say that it shouldn't be frustrating, that these conversations have always been there. In the 60s, at the height of the Black Power struggle in America, you had the NAACP, which was the one with the longest presence. You had a Nation of Islam, which is Elijah Muhammad, and Malcolm X was a spin-off of that. You had Martin Luther King's SCNC. And then you also had the Black Panther movement with Huey Newton. And the frustration even then was, why can't we all come together? Why can't why have so many different organizations? And I think it's difficult. I think generally when there's a common denominator of a target, in South Africa, the ANC was an umbrella organization that formed the ANC, and the target was appetite to topple the apartheid government. They were able to do that and come together with a focused target. Here in the US, there might be a person running for Congress in Missouri, somebody else in New Jersey. The people in Maryland don't really care, except that he's Nigerian. And so it's one of us, let's see how we can help. That common denominator for that purpose, it makes sense when you think about it, but it's just not strong enough as is to generate action. Now you look at some other organizations like the IPAC, which is the Jewish PAC. That's also an umbrella organization. You have the Anti-Defamation League, you have the Jewish Lobby, and so many other groups. So the IPAC has become the umbrella entity that represents all those groups with a focus on influencing American politics to get positive influence in Israel. And that was also possible because Israel as a country became powerful enough to use its financial wealth to drive its interest, not only in America, but in other countries. So the two are interconnected. You have to pull away and see the big picture. What's happening in Nigeria when it's so weak and unacceptable affects the ability of Nigerians to have impact here, and vice versa. When what's going on in America is weak, affects the ability of diasporas in Nigeria. So the two are all interconnected, and we at some point will have to see the best picture and organize ourselves in that manner to have impact on both fronts. That's my opinion.
Thank you. I really want to thank the panelists for the really incisive comments that they've provided. I think the key things that just keeps jumping out is the need for collaboration, the fact that where there's work already being done, the work we should do is to support that work and to move it forward. And where there are directions that we have not yet covered, the task is to work together to begin to address those areas. And I really want to thank the panelists for providing us with a lot of granularity, a lot of insights about what they had, their experiences as individuals, and what the organizations that they represent, the contributions those organizations are making, and the specific areas that those organizations are focused on. So that brings us to the end of that particular round of discussions. I'm being mindful of the time. It's now 7:37. And so what I just wanted to do right now is basically to just very quickly go back and remind everybody about the primary thing that's brought us together. Friday, please, we need to be there early enough to ensure that we get prime position, that we don't go through all this organization to be at the very back of the event. So please come early. The grounds are going to be opened up by 7. As a community, we plan to be there from 8. So at 8, please come to the corner of Constitution and 17th. You will find us there. We will be loud. We will be boisterous. You will not miss us. Look out for the whites. Look out for the green bandanas. We will be present. So please join. If you want to register your participation, please go. Mr. Namusi will add those to. We'll add those to the conversation. She will post those. Ms. Rachel, are there any chats, any comments that you wanted to quickly share with everyone before we close out?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Dr. Fabi,
yes.
Real quick, I apologize. Just in the spirit of the march, NAPAC USA, if you go to napacusa.org, we also have some merchandise. We have a store. We're promoting a particular t-shirt that says "Vote to Breathe." So if any member wants a variety of items to purchase to be part of the march on August 28th, please feel free to do so.
Okay, please post, and if you haven't done so already, you can please post the link to the website to the chat. So
all right,
that
thank you, sir.
Folks can go ahead. Please do that. Mr. Namusi, are there some comments that you would like to share with the group?
Just a couple of comments. Nothing today too inflammatory. From iPad, I wish I knew who this person is. Please put your name in the chat because this person has been dropping a lot of salient points. The handle says iPad bracket 110IB. If we can gather some of them
That's
together.
Miss Irene Badomosi.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yes,
okay. So that would make sense. Yes, the IB because yes. So I believe she was the one that dropped the petition for the transfer as well. I will post that again. If we can gather some of them together in a room, we can invite people running for office to talk to our group. They need our votes. So this speaks to what Madame Lara had also already mentioned initially. Laja Ibrahim said, I agree with you, sir. Not sure who he was talking to. We need to educate and liberate our people. If we're not well engaged here, we cannot make any impacts in Nigeria. Some of our people are as ignorant of what good governance means as they were when they left Nigeria. So Dr. O is agreeing with what Ms. Irene Badamose says in terms of if we could have political engagement for those interested and qualified. So I think that also speaks to maybe like a shadowing day that Madame Lara was also speaking about earlier on. Once again, Ms. Badamose says, we can stop visas for the politicians stealing our money if we are united here. We can testify at the United Nations. So again, that speaks to the impacts we have in the US affecting what happens in Nigeria. So there are a few more messages. Those were all the messages I wanted to post. If you need to know we do not have a Twitter account, but we could look into that leading up to March so that we could have a live tweet session going on. The links that are coming up, so NAPAC USA, all the various links, Mrs. Badamose's petition, all of that will also be put on that WhatsApp group. I've already pasted our Facebook group, the link to register for the march if you're interested. I know that's kind of gone up a little bit now, so I will be reposting that shortly.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Again, we want to thank everybody for participating. We especially want to thank the panelists. I think today's panel, I'm sure everybody would agree with me, was really insightful. We had folks who were able to share not just their own personal experiences, but represent some really important organizations within our community. Dr. Aham representing with views that help us to understand what is going on, not just with medical professionals that he is, which is his career area, but also other general socio-political impact organizations like OFIA. Madam Okunubi, thank you very much for enlightening us further about what NAPAC is doing. In fact, it was one of NAPAC's events, I think about 3-4 weeks ago, that I saw the first gathering of practically all the major known Nigerian American candidates that are running. So thank you for the work that you and your organization are doing. And then Dr. Otunuga, thank you for the perspectives that you shared as well. Again, want to thank everybody for coming. Please be part of the march. Encourage people to participate. If you're not in the DMV area, please come along. We want to thank Mrs. Okobi for coming here to give us a really powerful testimonial about Chinedu. I think, what you've told us, Ma, will really be something that we take with us to that march. It's not just a George Floyd that we don't know. Again, for every George Floyd, there's a Chinedu, and we will march in honor and in memory of Chinedu and other brothers and sisters that we have lost to racial prejudice and racial injustice. So please, if you have not done so, register to march. If you want to be part of these ongoing conversations, send us an email. And we have a Facebook account. Please join us on Facebook. We want to thank everybody again. Thank you to the panelists and everybody else. I'll see you at the march on Friday. Thank you.
Okay, good luck with the march, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Very informative. Love it.
All right, thanks. Yeah.